Most Great Commission organizations start with a vision for one component of the missionary task. Andy and Josh, you never heard me say that before? So you guys are the real test if this is true. Most missions organizations begin on board to the CMT with a passion or heart for one component of the missionary task. So if I'm Bill Bright, you pick on the Giants. That's okay, right?
They're big, they can handle it.
They're in heaven, then you're good. If I was Bill Bright and I had 4 spiritual laws in my pocket and I wanted to campaign that, I'd commit to it so I could campaign it on every campus I ever encountered. Where did Campus Crusade begin? They began with a vision here. And then they doubled down, probably 4 spiritual laws. Not the greatest of all presentations we ever heard, but the beauty and the brilliance was they standardized it and it became synonymous with who Cru is. If you're part of Campus Crusade, you are really? Tell me the 3rd law. And you knew right then whether they were telling the truth about being with Cru or not, right? And they didn't change it for 30 years. They campaigned it everywhere for the sake of they wanted to make sure it was accurate, and they wanted to see if they could get it to every campus, right? If I'm YWAM, what's YWAM's bread and butter? 3 letters. D, T, S. Am I right? Discipleship Training School.
That's right.
When Billy Graham, Evangelistic Association, when Billy says, you know what, we got to figure out follow-up, he goes and gets Dawson Trotman. And Dawson Trotman, the Navigators, my brother's been with Navigators since college, so I know this because Thanksgiving, you know. We get together. Who's your man? The discipleship. So even as Billy had a heart right here, as he's being effective with this, he immediately realizes there's next steps. What are we going to do when they say yes? And Dawson Trotman comes along. Navigators really goes global when they're trying to chase and provide solutions and follow-up for broad seed sowing. Right? Most organizations begin with a vision for one of these. Dare I say, Launch Global begins with a vision for the nations, the targets. What was the first name of Launch Global? Every ethne. And every ethne, so what, Andy? We got to get the gospel to them. And when they believe, you know what's next? As they're seeing fruit of that, we got to figure out and campaign disciple making. And in the midst of disciple making, even as we're coming from church, how do we introduce and model body life so that they can actually start church? As they enter through one of the components and were faithful and God provided fruit, organizations find their way full circle. These days, we're working with and accepting invitations regularly from GCM, Global Church Multipliers. That's the wing of Campus Crusade led by Bekele Shenko, who has a heart and has demanded that Campus Crusade figure out the church planting task around the world. Bekele Shenko and that whole wing of Campus Crusade exists because the process exists. Because the kingdom demands, how do we form new churches? And they're problem solving out of disciple making to do so. Okay? Rarely do you see an organization, and by the way, there's many organizations that start right here. I would definitely call our seminary and even organized institutions of the Southern Baptist Convention began with a vision for developing pastors and or sent ones. Right? So some have the slogan for the church, some have the slogan for the Great Commission. And you know, I don't know that you can go wrong in either Kansas City or Southeastern, but there they are, right? They have a vision for developing leaders. It doesn't have to be institutional to be the same thing. TTI, the Timothy Initiative, we were talking about them this week. They flowed out of BTCP, Bible Training for Church Pastors. right? Most organizations and Great Commission efforts begin with a vision for a component. Over time, as God gives them fruit, they're going to have to answer the same questions. Who do I share with? What do I say? What do I do if they say yes? How do we cut and bundle? Right?
You could even back up Billy's to the first field and say, how did he enter? I'm going to rent stadiums.
Rent stadiums,
Yeah.
put up a tent.
That's it. Yeah.
Absolutely. He had an entry strategy. Right? He even said, by the way, Los Angeles and elsewhere, the big famous piece is, he went and told churches, start praying, start gathering, start making, he didn't use the word oikos list, but invite all your lost relatives, pray for them and bring them to the tent, to the stadium, and we're going to get this done. And old Dawson's got us covered. You know, that's how it went, wasn't it?
Yep.
Beautiful. Because the kingdom is simple enough, predictable enough in rhythm. Now, why do we say that about organizations? Truth is, I'll say this about IMBers. I'll say this about Nathan and Karen. Lord willing, I'm saying it about my kids, who I believe are spirit-filled. Most believers also start with and or have a passion, initially or even lifelong, for one of the components of the missionary task.
Wow.
Really? If I'm pushing on Brian. If I told you all to get up and stand up, entry, gospel, discipleship, church formation, what's your passion? Go to the corner. When we do that exercise, most people end up in evangelism and disciple making. I think I understand why. It's not like stereotyping if it's a compliment, is it? You know who's really good and a lot of times gravitate toward entry? Latinos. I don't think that that's anything but a compliment, right? Warm culture, never met a stranger, willing to open the door, come on in, let's get everybody involved. Latinos and Latinas have a way of being really good at connecting to lost people. That's a compliment, right? Can you think of individuals who have a passion for developing leaders, or a passion for church health, a passion for shepherding, a passion for teaching, epistles specifically? You know, people have different passions in this. Now the hard part is we've all run to a corner of preference, and IMBers will too, but without a perspective on the components of the missionary task and how they fit, I have a tendency to profile for my passion. Even build team, watch for teammates. And if I'm over here in evangelism, and I'm writing job requests, guess what? For people who function like I do, there's a good chance I'll end up with a whole corner full of evangelists. And we might, with all the right pure motives, really heat up evangelism and seed sowing. The hard part comes when people say yes, and we haven't even considered what balance might be. How, as an evangelist, as one who raises up evangelists, one of my key functionalities in team might be to figure out how to fill and empower man hours in the next corner of the room, in the next component of the task. We see all the time teams that are loaded top heavy on one component of the task and aren't able to actually reproduce because no one gives the handoff and there's no one there to take a handoff or to know what to do with the next component. Does that resonate with any experience you've had? People have a tendency to profile for their own passion and fill up their corner of the room. And then when we do so, it's hard to get the balance.
It's experience in the church here as well, right?
Okay.
Your pastors typically are gonna, they're gonna
Look
gravitate towards those people who are
grab hold of
following
those,
their
they can
footsteps.
mentor to be pastors. Absolutely. Absolutely. And naturally. And we put the pure motive on the table. But not every pure motive results in the healthy balance across the whole of the missionary task. Okay? So a lot of times the reason we're lacking traction, remember what we said? All this for the sake of diagnosing and coaching toward traction. We might have at sometimes the blinders that say people who have my passion are the need of the hour. when all the while, because that's our passion and it's white hot, the next actual priority needs to be the next step.
Yeah.
So we're going to use this in some ways. We use the 4 fields, we use the 6 components of the missionary task as a diagnostic. We quoted Platt earlier, right? The state of the local church, the state of the harvest force, determines our posture and mission. So as we look and see an existing church, if they have seed sowing white hot, I'm going to ask enough questions to find out what's your passion, what are you good at, what are you doing really well. I'm going to celebrate their strength. And then I'm immediately going to start asking questions about next steps. What do you do when they say yes? I'm going to celebrate every strength they have in order to find the edge, get one step ahead, and ask some questions we know in the kingdom process is on its way. The need of the hour tomorrow. We're going to equip there. We're going to see and hope for that whole thing to be owned locally and reproduced with balance. Comfortable with that? Basic coaching posture. Utilizing the components of the missionary task, diagnose the strengths of the harvest force. That determines our posture as we relate to them going forward. Celebrate what they're strong. As you ask for their strengths, you're listening for what they don't say. Celebrating what they say, a step ahead of them, to be Johnny on the spot with what you know is coming next. Right? Okay. I'm going to erase and talk through a barrier, unless there's any questions or commentary on that piece. You thought of the 4 fields as a diagnostic? You thought of the components of the missionary task as a diagnostic? We used to use it, Jeff used to teach us to use it as a Great Commission Christian interview. How do you guys connect the lost people? Tell me what you do.
That's good.
When you're sharing the gospel, would you say the field's saturated with seed? How many are hearing the gospel today? Where do the sowers come from? Tell us about it. Hey, as the seed is out there, what do you do when they say yes? Oh, who can and who can't? And sometimes the question is sow the seed, but in follow-up, how does baptism authority work in your network and in your churches? How does that go? How does it get passed? All those questions that go right around the missionary task and anticipate biblical answers. And every one of those are our 6 shooters are ready with Bible studies to, right? Not that we're going to immediately listen and then assume the teaching role, but we're listening for where any link in the chain might be missing. And at the right time, with the right teachable heart, Bible's open, how do we link it up? Any thought on that? You guys are the easiest audience I've ever tried to teach in my life. Okay, so check this out.